so happy together.
Hi everybody, this is Praise Builders Summer Photography Course. I'm JoAnne and these are my friends. And you know I do get it by with a little help from my friends. Is it amazing that it's August already? I hope you guys are doing well and everything is going fine with you. This week's photography class, we're going to work on photographing individuals. Last week we did groups, so today we're going to work on just like taking pictures of one other person. And when we do that, like in a studio, we call it portrait photography or portraiture. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to give you some real good tips this week. So let's get on with it. When taking photos of people, there are some things to keep in mind. Why are you taking this photo? Is it a fun shot? Were you wanting to show off what was happening? Is it more formal, or are you going for a more candid shot? First off, when doing candids, the best thing is to make sure you are familiar with your device and know exactly that when you hit the button, when you're going to get your shot. Candid photography is its own discipline, as reflexes and spotting the opportunity are the best tools. Remember last year's VBS, when I would have some of you take my cameras and take photos? You guys did great. And with knowing more about your device, I am betting that I will see even more eye-popping photos. So whatever you are going to go for, here are some basic principles to go with. Photographing people by themselves. Many times, taking a photo is like telling a story. What would anyone get out of this photo? Would it show the subject's interests, their personality? How much can you get in one image? Do they have a pet, a car, musical or sports interests? If you look at these photos, you will see the person's interests are included. Do you see this one with my friend Phil with his dogs? How about the ones of Justin? This one with his car, and this one where we have him on the railroad tracks. By the way, do you see how we use the one-point perspective to focus the attention on him? I told you it would come in handy. This one, the gentleman is J. Pike, and the Pike family used to attend this church. You can see the one-point perspective and shooting from different angles helps to add interest to the images. Let's concentrate on lighting. Most of the time, you will either be working with whatever flash on your device has or available light. So I'm going to go over the basic lighting types for taking pictures of people. When we use the technical terms, it's called portrait lighting or portraiture. For these examples, I will mostly be using photos I took with my lighting system. I understand that most of you will not have this kind of lighting system. I'm just using this so we can see more clearly how the different lighting systems work with photos. And we will be talking later on how to do the similar photos with either available or outdoor lighting. The first kind of lighting is flat lighting. That's the kind you will get from whatever flash system you have on your device. It will probably come on when you're shooting in a low light situation or when your device thinks it needs more light. Coming in right in front of your subject, you will get even lighting with no shadowing. Depending on how bright your background is, you may only see the subject with everything else going black. This kind of lighting also tends to make faces look wider and can make them look blasted out if there's not enough light in the background. So if you can, keep close enough to walls so the light can bounce off and get back to your camera during the exposure. If you remember from last week's lesson, flat lighting is really good for groups. Let's talk about portrait lighting. This is the most used type of lighting for general portraiture, such as senior photos, advertising photos, or any other kind of publication photos. The person's face can be straight to the camera or turned slightly away from the camera, such as this photo. The main light is about 45-degree angle away from the camera, and that is so the light comes in from the side and gives more contour to the face. If you want to go a step further with this kind of lighting, there is something called Rembrandt lighting. This kind of lighting was used by the famous Dutch painter Rembrandt in his painting, and is most noted for the dark side of the face having that little triangular patch of light. Take a look at an example of portrait lighting with a more common mask lighting. If you look at the photo on the left, you have a good example of the Rembrandt lighting. You have your triangular patch of light, while at the photo on the right, the lighting goes more over the face. As I said, we call this mask lighting. Another thing to strive for in portraiture is to get the eyes correctly. When you get the eyes, you have the whole photo. First off, in this photo, notice the two little white spots, which is the light source being reflected off the eye to the camera. Those are called the catch lights. Getting this in your photo really opens up the eyes and helps give it more three-dimensionality. Along with that, it also lightens up the iris color. If you notice in this photo, the iris color is darker right next to the eyelid because it's shadowed, but lighter down and opposite to where the catch light is. Like I said, this helps open up the eyes and give 3 dimensions to the face. Returning to the lighting styles, we're going to talk about profile lighting. It goes with profile posing. The profile lighting goes along with the face. So if the face is turned away from the camera about 90 degrees, then the lighting goes with it. This is great when you're doing photos outside, as it can give the impression of movement, like the person is planning on going somewhere. Okay, so by now you are probably thinking, I don't think I will ever get to the point where I get my hands on all that fancy studio lighting. So what good does this all do me? You are right, but you don't need studio lights to get some of these photos. When we did the photos for the last Christmas play, and for some of you, I needed to get photos of you, and I didn't have my equipment with me. So I used window lighting and a big piece of foam board to get the main light and the fill light part. And you all looked fantastic. And there is also a growing field of available light photography people. They don't use the fancy flashes and all that. They use various lamps and lights. So we're going to do a breakdown of what you really need to do to get the lighting, and then you can see if you can do it with any kind of light you have on hand. Fred volunteered to be the test subject today, so here she is with the camera set on automatic. The camera used the flash on the camera, so this is what we got. See how blasted out Fred looks? No contouring or shaping in the face at all. You can barely tell her features because the camera was trying to get everything lit, which overlit her face. Now, first off, turning the camera to manual, I took a floor lamp, but I didn't point it directly at her face, but let the side of the light get to her face. You can see the contouring, the highlights and the shadows, but the contrast is very stark. The darks are very dark, and you can't see where her hair ends and that big blob of shadow begins. In this shot, what I did was take a 20 by 24 piece of white foam board, and I used it to reflect the light coming in from the right so it would hit the left side of her face. If you look at these two shots right next to each other, you will see that the shadows in the second one is not quite so extreme. To use light, whether from reflected light or another light source entirely, is called fill light. And that is what it does. It fills the shadows a bit. Now, we still don't have the picture I want because we still have that big old blob of shadow in the lower left and can't see her hair separated from the background. So what I did is I grabbed a second lamp and I pointed it right at the shadow to lighten it up so we can tell the difference between Fred's hair and the background. If you look at this before and after photo, you can see what we started out with and what we ended up with, just using on-hand materials. We could probably go even further and try to find an extra light to bring out the shine in Fred's curls. But for now, we pretty much got the basics. I would suggest you try experimenting with this and just see what you come up with. For outdoor photography, you do have it easier that you have the sun as your main light source. So you just need to keep in mind where the sun is, where your subject is, and what the background looks like. If you look at this photo, you can see that the light is coming in from the left. I stood so it came in on portrait lighting with being neither too profile or too flat. The same with Dave Olson's photo here. And if you didn't know, he's the husband of Jen Olson, the administrative assistant at our church. Here's another photo of Justin, way back from his senior photo days. Did you see how the light is coming in from the back left of the camera? When planning outdoor photography, you sometimes need to scope out beforehand and make sure you know when is the best time to do the photos at any particular site. Needless to say, I could not have done this photo in the morning as the sun would have been directly behind him. I think the main thing I would like to leave you with this week is thinking of how to do your photos with what you have on hand and still get the really good photos that you would like. Take a look at these photos that I took of you guys, and unless you were there when I took them, can you tell me which ones were taken with the professional lighting system and which ones did I just choose with either available or natural light? All in all, you guys all looked fantastic, and it was a lot of fun to take your pictures. Well, that was the lesson we wanted to work on today. Again, I'm hoping you got a lot out of it, and I'm hoping you actually take some time and experiment with those lighting situations I was talking about. I'd really love to see what you could do with whatever lamps, lights, reflectors, or whatever you have on hand. So until next week, and remember, we only have 3 more weeks after this before we go into our fall sessions. So hoping that you're all taking care, staying safe, and having a lot of fun. So on behalf of myself and my friends, have a nice week.